Hello, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. I'm here to present on drugs, alcohol, and recovery. I appreciate that you're here. This webinar is brought to you by Fentanyl, which is an organization that I work for. I wanted to give you a little background on some of the stuff we got going on with Fentanyl. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people that use substances, whether they are looking for recovery or not. We're happy to help and assist. Some of the things we got coming up that we definitely want you guys to attend is our upcoming overdose prevention training. The next one is in Naranja Branch Library, which is located in Naranja, and the address you'll see it below. It's on Tuesday at March 25th at 6:30 at the Naranja Branch Library on 14850 Southwest 280th Street in Homestead. So hopefully you can make it out there. Everybody that attends will get a Narcan. They'll have access to fentanyl test strips, and they'll get to learn how to respond to an overdose, how to best assist somebody, and learn about harm reduction as well. Um, Also, coming up tomorrow, you're not going to want to miss this. We're going to have recovery stories where we'll have a guest speaker. Her name is Lady Suarez. She's a prevention specialist and a person in long-term recovery. She'll be sharing her story on what it was like and how she got into recovery and what she's doing now. And then I'll jump in there too and share my story with the same how what it was like, what happened, and then how I'm doing now. So look forward to that tomorrow at 7 o'clock on live as well. What else do we got going on? Oh, one more thing before I get into the presentation. Um, and this is to save the date. We want you to save the date for Overdose Awareness Day at the University of Miami. The date we want you to save is August 29th, 2025. We This is an annual event that we do as a remembrance of folks that have passed away from overdose. This year we'll be welcoming the Black Poster Project, which, as you can see in this photo here, is what they bring. They bring a photo poster of each individual. They have upwards of 900 folks that they're going to bring, and they're going to fill the ballroom at the University of Miami, and it's going to be an amazing sight to see all these folks and just kind of see a snippet of what the opioid epidemic has done. And we're hoping to bring awareness, break some stigma, and educate some folks on what's going on. Um, and then let me make sure. Okay. And then we're gonna get right to it. I'm gonna check on the questions screen, the chat from not every now and then. So I want you guys to, if you have questions, put them in there. I'll get to them. Um, I know we're gonna have about an hour and some change to get this all in. Just as a disclaimer, this is a very small snippet of a lot of information that I wanted to give you. So it's kind of like a beginner course on substance use, a little bit on different substances, what it is to have a substance use disorder, what it is to be in recovery, and then a couple other extras. But I there's no way I could get all the information in, so it's very like a very beginner's course as to how to help somebody and what's going on with somebody that may have a substance use disorder. And not everybody that uses substances has an issue or a severe substance use disorder. So there's always within the continuum. So I'm going to get right to it. Let's see here. All right, let's get right to it. I'll give you a little background as to um, our organization. Our organization is F Fentanyl. Our mission is to save lives, right? That is the number one mission of our organization. And we do that by providing trainings like the one we're doing today, by doing street outreach in the community for folks that may be experiencing homelessness, for folks that own businesses, for every population will go and do outreach and educate. We'll give out Narcan. We'll give out hygiene products. Um, and then also we do nightlife events like music festivals and clubs and bars. We'll be at the Ultra Music Festival this year. We're pretty excited about that, so that we can educate people while they're out having fun. We want to make sure that they have fun and are safe. So we're going to be out there. And then last but not least is resource linkage, right? We're not going to push recovery on anybody that is not asking to get help. But if they are absolutely looking for help, we're absolutely going to push them in the right direction, whether it's getting into treatment or the detox to a therapist, whatever it may be, we can help them with that, whether they have insurance or not. We're happy to assist with that, because we don't do everything, but we definitely don't want to leave anybody hanging. Um, and so a little background as to who am I and why should you listen to me, right? Well, my name's Thomas Guerra, and I'm a person in long term recovery. Basically, that means I haven't used substances in over 10 years. Um, and I have a bunch of credentials there that are on the screen, but I highlighted the that I'm a person in long term recovery because that is my biggest credential, my biggest tool in helping people. And I get to be a father to my kids as a result of that. And though they've never seen me in active addiction, I got my bachelor's and master's from FIU. I have a master's in mental health counseling. I currently I do work as a therapist at South Miami Recovery Outpatient. I also am working with this nonprofit at Fentanyl, and I'm also the founder of my previous organization, which was Miami Recovery Project. I say all that to say that you could call me an expert, but what makes me the expert is I don't think the credentials is more of the experience that I've lived through, that I could connect with people that are going through that right now. So what we're going to talk about today, a little synopsis, is drugs, alcohol, and I already got a, I see a grammar issue. That's not my best thing, but I'll get you the information though. The commonly used substances in the community, some of the risk factors for developing a substance use disorder. What does it mean to have a substance use disorder diagnosis? And then recovery, and multiple pathways to recovery, how to get into those pathways, and then treatment. What are let's see, another error, right? There's a uh, we'll talk about treatment and all the levels of that, and then I'll throw a little bit of harm reduction because that's what we do best here at Fentanyl, just to let you guys know what that is. And sometimes harm reduction is the stepping stone prior to getting into recovery. And I'll explain more on that in a little bit. So when it comes to substance use, right, and alcohol use, not everybody that uses is going to develop a problem, right? Actually, a small portion of people will develop a problem. The majority of people will be able to use and handle it and not have many issues with it. But there is a small fraction of people that will get to the end of this spectrum, right? At the severe risk, right? The severe substance use disorder. Um, the problem with this, whether you are at the front of the spectrum or at the end of the spectrum, taking any substances that are out there today is very risky because there is a lot of stuff that is laced with different substances, specifically fentanyl, right? So even if you're using, cocaine or you're using weed or using any substance, there's risk that it may have other things in it. So that's what makes it so much more risky nowadays, even for the person that's trying for the first time, and even more so for the person that has a severe substance use disorder. So, right, the most common substance, alcohol, right? Um, Alcohol, that was one of the things that brought me down was alcohol. I loved to drink because it worked for me. It took away my inhibitions. It took away the anxiety. But the thing with alcohol is that it is readily available, right? You can buy it at any store, and so although it seems like the least harmless of all the substances, there are a lot of physical issues that can develop as a result of drinking alcohol. Pretty much every organ in your body is affected by alcohol, and there's over 178 deaths each year uh, from these physical issues, whether it's cancer or liver issues, from even you know car crashes and DUIs, things of that nature. There's a lot of deaths because of alcohol, and we kind of take it lightly because it is legal, but there is a lot of dangers associated with alcohol. So alcohol, it is a depressant. Basically, what that does is it slows down your breathing, and it slows down the messaging traveling to your brain. When you are drinking, of course, you're going to feel a little more relaxed, increase the confidence, right? That's the reason I used to drink, was because it took away the fear and anxiety that I had naturally, right? So it was a self coping mechanism for me, and a lot of people use that similarly. But also, what happens is, your concentration goes down, slurred speech, right? And the more alcohol you drink, the more of these things happen, right? I don't think I have to tell anybody, whoever has drank before. But something that a lot of people don't know is that when you develop a alcohol use disorder, or your body becomes physically dependent to alcohol, that means when you stop drinking, you will develop symptoms of withdrawal. Sometimes the symptoms of withdrawal look like shakiness. Sometimes it'll be sweating. Sometimes it'll feel like anxiety from the inside. When in extreme cases, withdrawal from alcohol can be fatal. Let me repeat that. Withdrawal from alcohol can be fatal. So if you're trying to stop drinking and you've been physically dependent to alcohol, this can be a situation that can lead to death. In serious situations, people hallucinate. They develop a delirium tremens, which is when you start seeing things. And so it's very, very dangerous to get off alcohol when you have developed a physical dependence towards that. Another similar acting to alcohol is benzo, like a Xanax or a Klonopin, right? If you develop a physical dependence and you are trying to get off on developing withdrawal, that can be fatal as well. So it's always important, if you have a physical dependence, if you have any symptoms of shakiness, of sweatiness, of all these things that happen when you stop drinking after a few days, you definitely want to go to seek a medical professional and go to detox so they can properly get that out of your system, because it could be very dangerous. All right, so moving on to cannabis, another commonly used substance, right? Marijuana. We got the medical dispensaries here in Florida. They tried to made it recreationally available, which almost passed. And so it is readily available and it's common, right? The thing about cannabis and marijuana is that the strength of this drug has uh, increased tremendously over the years, right? Whereas the weed that we were smoking back in the day was, you're lucky if you had a small portion of THC in it. Now there's they have cannabis that could almost have 100% THC, and so because of this, there's likely side effects of this. Um, so with cannabis, you could take it in a number of different ways. Most commonly smoked, or now in vape. But again, you could take it in gummy form or in brownies even. The problem with this is that not everybody is susceptible, but there are certain people that are susceptible to psychotic episodes, right? Because of smoking marijuana, right? And I've dealt with some of these clients before, and it's not everybody, but some people are susceptible to that, and so when smoking marijuana, that can bring that out. And it's not too pretty, but it's because the marijuana is very, very potent these days. When taking weed, right, marijuana or cannabis or loud, whatever you call it, it does serve a purpose, right? And there are medical reasons for using this, right? But the reality of it is that there are dangers to it as well, just like any other drug. When taking marijuana, feelings of relaxation, euphoria, laughing, right? Getting dry mouth, of course, appetite. right? Which helps in a lot of cases in medical setting, like with cancer patients that are not eating and developing appetite. But you got to take the good with the bad as well. Um, and so it can be an issue. The good thing with when getting off with marijuana is that it's not going to be a fatal issue. It is going to be unpleasant. You may be a little annoyed, triggered, and snappy, right? But it is something that you can get through, and it's not that it's going to be a fatal situation. Cocaine, right? Another common drug, right? Right, especially here in Miami, Florida. Um, it's very important to note that a lot of the stuff that is out there is not going to be pure. You're lucky if you get anything even close to having cocaine in it. So that's why we got to be very careful with any substance that we take because it can be laced with other substances that can cause physical issues. Particularly, I'm always going to mention fentanyl because it has been there have been so many cases where even people I have known that they bought cocaine and they had no tolerance for opioids, which fentanyl is an opioid, and they immediately overdosed and passed away because it was laced with fentanyl. Right. And so if you're buying it on the street, if you're buying any substance on the street, you can be assured that it's been tampered with and it's been mixed with other substances. And hopefully you don't have to deal with that. But we have to put this on the radar for everybody, whether you have a severe substance use disorder or you're trying for the first time or you're using that one time a year where you're celebrating and you take a bump, right? You're still at risk. So you want to be careful and you want to, if that is the case, you want to make sure that you are able to test it and make sure that you don't have anything that's been tampered with. Um, Cocaine is a stimulant, right? It comes in a number of different forms. Basically, what it does is it speeds up the messaging to your brain, right? You're going to be talking fast. You're going to be thinking, having great ideas, right? And it can make you feel like you can drink some more and that you're not uh, impaired, but this is not the case. You're even more impaired. Um, the withdrawal from cocaine, again, can be unpleasant, but it's not going to be fatal. You can overdose from cocaine if you take it in large amounts, and you can overdose if it is laced with fentanyl. Right, so it's very important to note that there's a lot of dangers to this, and it also, when taken with alcohol, it turns into a different substance that is pretty bad for the body as well. And so we want to be aware of these things, right? And this is something that we know about. We know about the dangers. Um, if people are going to use, right, we want them to be educated as to what can happen and what is possible, right, with education. And then also, if somebody's looking to get help, we can absolutely push them in the right direction to get that help. But not everybody is at that level of having a severe problem. Um, Again, I did mention this, right? The if you take cocaine, you're gonna feel feelings of happiness and confidence and feeling energetic. But here's the problem: is that it will is using the dopamine uh, at a higher level, right? So when you come off this, you're gonna feel very depressed. You're gonna feel not very well. You're gonna have some depression, and it takes a few days to get back on track, right? And so if you use this in large amounts, this is going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your ability to work. It's going to affect your contentment. Yeah. All right. So getting to opioids, which is this is something we kind of specialize in. Opioids and being an organization that is called F Fentanyl, right? We specialize on this, and our goal is to prevent overdoses from any drug, but particularly opioids. Opioids are responsible for over 100,000 deaths a year in the United States. So this has to be on everybody's radar. Particularly fentanyl is the reason that um, the overdose rate is so high. Opioids include drugs that attach to the opioid receptor. So, to be more specific, an opioid is um, a synthetically made uh, man-made. as opposed to opiate, which is made from the poppy plant that comes from plants, right? But these terms are interchangeable because they act similarly and they're used for pain. But again, what can be used for physical pain can also take away emotional pain, and that's where that risk of developing an addiction comes along. So what happens when taking opioids? You get extreme relaxation and the drowsiness. That's where you see some people nodding off, slurred speech, and slow breathing. It is important to note that if you're mixing an opioid with alcohol or with a benzo or mixing drugs together, you're at a higher risk of an overdose than if you're using one alone. The reason is because these act very similarly. With an opioid, it slows down your breathing, right? Um, and so if you're doing alcohol or benzos, that also does the same thing. So you're at a higher risk of overdose. This is so surprising to some people. Withdrawing from opioids, very unlikely to cause death. You feel like you're going to die. You feel very bad. You're going to be nauseous. You're going to be in pain, sweating, diarrhea, throwing up, a lot of these things, but you're very unlikely to die. As compared to alcohol, right, where you would think it's less dangerous, but you can die from the withdrawal of alcohol, and most likely you cannot die from the withdrawal of opioids, which is, you want to get detox, you want to get go to a professional when you're detoxing from this, but it is going to be very unpleasant, but you will survive that. All right, so now we're getting into some of the risk factors for developing a substance use disorder, right? And so when I say this, I want to give the disclaimer. If you have any of these issues, that does not mean that you're going to develop a substance use disorder 100%. With each one, it increases the likelihood of developing a substance use disorder, right? So you can have predictors, right, that will predict that somebody's more likely to develop. First one is trauma, right? It's specifically childhood trauma. If anything happened as a child, and with trauma to one person can be not as traumatic to another person. So it depends, but likely things are abuse, right, or maybe having a parent missing, bullying, not having both parents in their life, and then environment is another one. Was there verbal abuse? Was there influences? Was there a chaotic home? Another one is the predisposition, which is the genetic predisposition. So if somebody in the family has an alcohol use disorder or a substance use disorder, the likelihood for somebody else to have it increases. And same thing with mental health issues. And then the last one there is the age of onset, right? The younger that somebody starts experimenting with drugs, um, the higher the likelihood of developing a severe problem later in life. And the number is upwards of 90% of people with a severe substance use disorder started using in their adolescent years, in their teenage years. And that's because our brain is not fully developed at that time. And so we're at that age, we're more focused on rewards over consequence, right? And that's how it stays, right? You get kind of stunted if you start using at that age, and it can become severe. All right, so some of the things you want to look for, right? If you think somebody may have an issue, of course, is mood changes. They're getting defensive, or they maybe uh, get high tempered for little reasons. Um, if they are a student, maybe the attendance goes down and their grades are going down. Another one is changing friends, right? They are no longer hanging out with the friends they used to, and they maybe not introducing you to their new friends. Um, they have a different attitude, as they don't care too much about the things they used to care about. And then the obvious one is finding some of the substances around. And then So sometimes you'll notice that they don't remember as well. Sometimes you can obviously see them that they're impaired or slurred speech. These are some things that you can find and look for, and could be some signs that you may have something going on with whoever it is that has you think has a problem. So that when it comes to you know medical terms, or in the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual that is used to diagnose people with all mental health issues, there is criteria that somebody needs to meet to qualify as having a substance use disorder. And when I say substance use, you can interchange it for whatever substance, or you could put alcohol there. It's all the same symptoms to diagnose. Um, And so when somebody goes to treatment, or somebody goes to a therapist, or somebody goes to any place with a professional, they're going to get a diagnosis, especially if they're going through insurance. The insurance is definitely going to want a diagnosis so they can cover um, whatever treatment it is. And so I just show this directly to a lot of my clients, and they make their decision on their own. Um, when it comes to diagnosing somebody with substance use disorder. You only need two out of these to have a mild, and then 4 to 5 to have moderate, and then six or more to develop a severe substance use disorder. And so the first one is the amount, right? You're taking something in larger amounts than you initially intended. A lot of times this looks like, hey, I'm going out for a beer. I'm just going to drink one beer with the buddies and I'll be back home. Eventually, you close the bar down, right? Um, the control, you want to cut down, but you're unable to. So that basically means that, you know what, I'm not gonna drink during the week anymore. I'm just gonna drink on the weekend, and then you kind of start breaking promises to yourself. And then, you know what, Thursday kind of counts as the weekend. You know what, Wednesday, that's the weekend too. So you kind of start backtracking. You got the time that you spend on obtaining the substance, but not only that, the time it takes to recover from using the substance, or the time it takes to thinking about how am I going to get the substance, and then the time that you're under the influence of that substance. When it comes to the cravings, right? That's just that obsessive thinking about the substance, right? For me, it used to look like I'm looking at the clock. I can't wait to get out of this whatever job I was at, so I can go and use what I got to use. Um, with the obligations, that's stuff you got to do during in life, which could be work. You're starting to be late to work, or it may be I didn't pick up my kids from school, or I was late to practice to take my son to practice. These obligations that your responsibilities, um, you start missing some of those. A big one, right, is when people start noticing, and that's the social. You got friends, you got family that they start noticing. Hey, it looks like they may have an issue, and a lot of times they notice before we do. We kind of deny it. We don't see it. They're the ones seeing it beforehand because they notice the difference in us. Number seven, activities. Right, the things we used to love to do, we are doing less of, or we give it up entirely. A lot of the hobbies that we did could be, I used to go to play sports all the time. Now I don't go out no anymore. I used to love to go to the movies with friends, and I don't do that anymore because priorities have changed. Hazard, you continually use the substance in physically hazardous situations, right? A great example is DUI, driving under the influence, right? We know it's dangerous, but we do it anyway. Um, harm, consistently using the substance despite, knowing that it may be physically damaging our body and our brain. Tolerance, that's when you need more and more of a substance to get that same effect. where I was drinking 3 beers and I used to get a nice buzz. Now I need to drink, 8 beers to get that same buzz, right? And that happens over time from using. And then withdrawal is when you are removed from that. When you are removed from the substance, you start having these physical issues. Each substance has different symptoms of that, and sometimes can be fatal, just like alcohol and Xanax and benzos. Um, and so, with these being said, right, somebody can self-diagnose themselves, even if they're not 100%, um, honest with themselves. You can still see how damaging having a few of these is. When I was in active addiction, I had all 11 of these, and there was no doubt about it. But even somebody in the mild range and the moderate range can benefit from some type of recovery and treatment. Now let's get to the recovery part. My favorite part. And so a lot of people will say recovery is going back to where what you used to be. I don't like that because that's the reason I was using. I like this definition that comes from SAMHSA, and it is recovery is a process of change through which an individual improves their health and wellness, lives self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. Right? Basically, making a better life for yourself so that using and drinking is not conducive to that lifestyle. Right? You improve your life, you find purpose, you improve your health, right? And these all uh, increase the likelihood of staying in recovery because you don't want to mess that up. Uh, so take a look at this next slide here. See if you recognize anybody. And so I show this slide simply because um, you never know who's in recovery, and I show these are celebrities, so they're more recognizable. And I'm not breaking anybody's anonymity. These people are open with their recovery, um, but uh, you kind of see one part of it right now. You kind of see their lives right now. Do you know where they were at? Do you know what they were going through? Right. Some of them, particularly like Robert Downey Jr. If you look in his history, he was in and out of prison, in and out of jail, had a lot of issues with cocaine and other drugs, right? And then you kind of see his change, right? He's around 17, 18 years in recovery, and one of the most respected people in Hollywood, and he helps other people find recovery as well. And so, like, it's always cool to see people's transition into the life they live now. And some people we didn't know they're in recovery. We knew they were messing up. Charlie Sheen, it was very public that he was active addiction, and it was very hot story to cover him when he was going. He was off the wall. But very little people know that he's about 5 or 6 years in recovery now because it's not as a hot story. But it is amazing that even Charlie Sheen can find recovery, right? With the right resources, with the right help, and the right motivation, anybody can find recovery. All right, so some of the pathways to recovery, right? This is important because when I say the word recovery, a lot of people will be like, "Oh no, I'm not going to go to the 12-step meetings." Well, that is one pathway to recovery, right? AA and 12-step meetings, like AA and NA. Um, those are the most common. You see it in the movies, you see it everywhere, because this program has been around since 1935, right? Almost a decade of helping people that have had issues with alcohol and drugs. Um, and a lot of those people in that previous picture, use this pathway to get into recovery. But it's not the only and it's not the exclusive way to get into recovery. Um, it is a good option because it is a place where you can connect with other people that have the same issue. That is a huge way in getting support and feeling like you're not alone. Even if that you don't do anything else, that's a huge benefit of going to those programs, is because you can find other people that have that you'll hear your story at one of these meetings, and you'll think like, wow, I thought I was the only one going through that. And you hear somebody just share the exact same thing that you're going through. That is huge, and it's a great benefit to that. There's also other pathways, which include like Smart Recovery, which is it's a non-religious based organization or a program that teaches you skills to change behaviors. Right? It's kind of it uses CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and you could go learn skills and learn to change your process of thinking. Um, and it's a different method. And you have some more spiritual based programs like Recovery Dharma, which is based in Buddhism and meditation, right? And so it is a different pathway where if you go to one of those meetings, you're gonna meditate, you're gonna stay quiet for a little bit, and you're gonna talk about the principles of Buddhist and how to stay in recovery uh, with that route. And then you have Celebrate Recovery. This is a Christ based program, which is Christian, it uses the Bible. It also uses 12 steps. Um, and so, if that is something that you know that you are focused on, it is somewhere you can go and get help and use a spiritual aspect to help you get that. Um, I always share that I got a special place for CR or Celebrate Recovery because um, when I was in active addiction, I wasn't necessarily ready to get help, but my mother went to Celebrate Recovery and she was able to get the support of other people, specifically other women in the program, and get the support she needed to deal with me, right, and have that strength and hope to deal with me and get and um, you know, help push me in the direction of getting my own help. But she was getting her support all the while. And then some other things that I haven't listed here, right, is, going to therapy, right, seeing a therapist, physical exercise, right. There's a program um, that is called the Phoenix, which is basically doing physical exercise, um, which includes like running and CrossFit and rock climbing. And it's a fellowship and brings people together that are interested in working out and then also being in recovery. And so there's a lot of options. It's just finding that one that fits you the best. When it comes to treatment, right? And I'm just briefly going over this because I don't want to um, get too much into it. Treatment is on a continuum of care, right? So you want at the beginning, it's going to be getting into a detoxification, right? You're going into a program, usually ranges from 3 days to maybe at most 2 weeks, right? But usually averaging around 5 to 7 days, depending on the drug you're using. It's where you can go and be monitored so that you can safely get off these substances. Because, like I said, alcohol, benzos, right? They can be fatal, right? And then unpleasant are, getting off of opioids. So they can give you um, medications that make it a little easier to go through and have medical supervision so to make sure that they can attend to you if there is a situation. Um, Ideally, after that, you want, and this is if in a perfect world, if money was not an issue, insurance was not an issue, we would want people to stay connected for a long period of time because that's the best outcome when it comes to recovery. If any other disease, cancer or diabetes or anything, you're going to stay connected for a long time. Um, when it comes to addiction, it is a different story because of insurance, because of finances. But if money was not an issue, we would want people to go to first to inpatient, right, where they would be inside, they would be away from the environment that caused them to be and have an addiction, right, and be away from that, be with therapy, be with group therapists, be with other people in recovery, right? And then 30 to 60 to 90 days later, you will step down to an IOP, which is intensive outpatient, where you will live at home or you will live somewhere, outside of a treatment center. Sometimes people choose to live in a sober living or recovery house, but they go to the treatment at the IOP, right? And it's usually about 3 days a week, 3 hours a day, and then you have a therapist as well. Um, it's the same thing. You're just living on your own, and then stepping down to OP, where it's a little less hours a week, doing the same type of thing with therapists and groups. And then after that, you still stay connected with recovery support, whether it be seeing a peer specialist, which is somebody with lived experience, whether it be going to meetings, whether it be going to aftercare at the treatment center that you went to. And the longer that you stay connected, the better the outcome. Um, and that's ideal in a perfect system. That's how it would work. Unfortunately, insurance companies don't see it that way. Uh, so when it comes to harm reduction, right? This and I'll read it from here, but I'll speak on it. Harm reduction incorporates a spectrum of strategies that include safer use, managed use, abstinence, meeting people who use drugs where they are at, and addressing conditions of use along with the use itself. So basically, what that means is using drugs is dangerous, right? And not everybody is ready to stop using at the same time. Um, but just because that person is not ready doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to shut you off. You don't deserve any help whatsoever. It is, how can I still help you? How can I make sure that you live another day? How can I ensure that you're taken care of? Sometimes that means um, limiting the dangers of a certain drug use. If it is something that people use that they inject just by using a clean needle versus one that's been already used is a method of harm reduction, because you're avoiding getting these different diseases that come when you reuse needles. Harm reduction when it comes to alcohol, right? Um, it is when you're drinking, in between the drinks, have a glass of water in between, so you can, not get as impaired, right? And a lot of times, harm reduction is a stepping stone to recovery, because if if I'm using harm reduction, that means that I'm limiting the dangers. But if I'm trying to do harm reduction with alcohol and they're telling me to drink water in between each drink and trying to do all this, and then I still can't do it, and I'm still having issues, and it shows me that, hey, maybe abstinence is the next step to that. And sometimes harm reduction is the method, and it's the one that gets you out of the consequences, and it's the one that um, keeps you safer, right, when doing these different activities. Um, I specifically mention this because um, we don't push anything on anybody. It's up to the individual to figure out what that is. Um, if they want to explore recovery, we help them explore recovery, and we can help them get into treatment. But harm reduction is absolutely a method that is necessary because of the type of drugs that are out there. Um, because everyone is at risk that takes substances, from the beginning of a person that's trying for the first time to severe substance use disorder, anything down the line, right? And if you come to our overdose prevention training, right, you're going to see a lot of things. And there's a lot of people um, that took a pill thinking that it was Xanax and it was laced. They took cocaine and it was laced. And they were not necessarily having a severe substance use disorder. They were experimenting for the first time. They were experimenting, or using recreationally, right? That's still dangerous. Um, an example I can give you guys is with alcohol. Right now, it is a regulated substance. If you go to the store and you buy a 12 pack of Budweiser, you could be assured that it has 5.5% and it has everything that you expect it to have. Back in the day, in the days of prohibition, when it was illegal, there were people dying from drinking alcohol because it was not regulated. They were making it in the bathtub, and there was all different types of substances in these types of substances, right? And so that's what's happening right now with the drug supply. None of it is regulated, right? Specifically, the one that's coming on the street, and there's no way to guarantee what it is. So that's why it is very tricky to deal with drug laws and all these things going on, because although in some manners we want it to be illegal for these strong types of substance, the fact that it's illegal takes away the regulation of it, so that you cannot guarantee what it is because it's all coming from on the black market. So that's I get a little bit into that, but I don't want to get fully because I could go on a rant. Let's see what I got next here. All right, so some resources. If you are located in Miami, and some of these are national. These are some resources that you can utilize if you have a friend or a family member that is in crisis. The mobile response team is located in the Miami area. If you call that number, you can have a 24/7 somebody show up, and they'll come and assess the situation. Um, they are uh, professionals. Some of them are peer specialists, and they'll come and be able to respond. The 988, again, that's a suicide prevention line, which is available nationwide. Another good resource to have is thrivingmind.org /get help. So this is basically any state-run organization, nonprofit organization where they have a sliding scale, or you don't have to pay, um, goes through Thriving Mind. And so, whether you need a detox or a treatment center or a mental health, um, or things of that nature, you can go there and find a place um, that you could get anybody into. Sometimes there will be a wait list to get into these places, but finances is usually never an issue. Um, if you have insurance, you can go to treatmentatlas.org and you can find a treatment center anywhere in the anywhere in the United States, that can, and you can look up by whatever issue it is, whatever substance it is, and they'll help you find the nearest treatment center that fits you best. The last one, which is peerrecoverynow.org, you can look up uh, RCOs. And basically, what an RCO, it stands for Recovery Community Organization. A recovery community organization is basically a one-stop shop for recovery. It's a nonprofit organization run by people in recovery. The board is made of people in recovery. The people who work there are people in recovery, and they have meetings there. They provide peer specialists, and they can help you get into treatment. And they have a lot of fun stuff to do there as well. Sometimes they got yoga, sometimes they got art classes, um, and they can help you find a job, things of that nature. And you can find the nearest RCO in the country. Just to name off a few that are in the Miami area, if you're located in the Miami area, there's one that I'm very familiar with. It's called the Miami Recovery Project, located on Sunset and 92, I believe. And then there's another one called New Hope RCO, which they have two locations. One is located in South Miami, and the other one is located at Homestead. And then another one is called South Florida Wellness, where they have a bunch of their locations in Broward, and they have one in Miami. And I guarantee there's going to be more coming soon, but those are the ones that are located in Miami. Also in Broward, there's one called Fellowship Foundation, another great organization. They do great work. All right, so now that I've gotten through all this and told you some of the things that you can do, this is just the beginning point, right? There's so much more information that to get, and we have other events that we definitely would recommend you to attend so you can learn some more. But um, be ready for that loved one if they are ready to get help. Be knowledgeable of the resources. Be knowledgeable of the local meetings in the area. Be knowledgeable of the local treatment centers in the area, so that when that person says, "Hey, I'm ready," that you don't scramble trying to figure out where it is. You already have it down listed on a paper, and you can go there and get that person the help they need, because they're going to change their mind in 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, right? So you want to jump on that opportunity. Another thing we want to make sure is that you take a Narcan training. We provide this on a regular basis. We do them at all the public libraries. Again, we have one coming up on the 25th of, let me make sure I got it here. Here it is. March 25th at 6:30 at the Naranja Branch Library. If you go to this training, we will give you Narcan, we will give you test strips, and we will give you an education on how to respond to an overdose. Um, and everything we do is free. We're never going to charge for any of that. And then if you're a family member and you're not sure what to do, or you're struggling with a loved one, you can use support too. The Al-Anon is a great access point. Celebrate Recovery is a great access point. Families Anonymous is a great access point, where you can go and you feel like you are understood, and have other family members that understand, that have gone through this, and can guide you and can give you support and to give you the strength to deal with what you're going through. Um, because you are not alone. There's plenty of people that have gone through this, and people who have got to the other side. And so I would highly encourage, if you are a family member or a friend, to start that recovery process for yourself too, because this is a family disease and it affects everybody in the family. All right, let me see. All right, like I said, tomorrow we got a great lineup, which is, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'll be speaking. I'll be sharing how I got into recovery, but some of the struggles that I went through prior to getting into recovery. And then we'll have Lady Suarez, who is a person in recovery. She has volunteered with fentanyl, and she's a prevention specialist for a nonprofit organization in Hialeah. And she'll share more on that in tomorrow's share. And also, the best part about it is that you could come and ask questions about it. Very similar to a meeting format, but the bonus is that you can ask questions. I think most questions are on the table. I'm an open book, at least myself, and you could come and ask us anything about maybe something you saw today, but also about our recovery story, and what did we do, and another one, right? So what you saw today was a small snippet version of a longer training, which is called the Recovery Ally Training. We're doing one at the New Hope RCO, which is located at the Unity Recovery Center. It's going to be on Tuesday, April 8th at 10 a.m. So you could come to that one and get a more extended version of this webinar, and you could ask questions, and you'll get to check out the New Hope RCO, which is a great facility. Again, we got a bunch of trainings coming up. The next one's at Naranja Branch, and then in April we got one at Westchester. But if you want us to do a training for your organization, you could reach out to us, and we'll be happy to do a training for your organization, for your church, for your school, for a bunch of parents you got together and you have it at a house. I've done that before too, so it doesn't matter. I'll do it anywhere. Um, and then last but not least, I'm taking questions, right? I know we got about 7 minutes left. This is my contact information. If you want to reach out to me, you got the email, you got the social media, and you got my direct line. Now is the time where I would love to answer any questions. If anybody has questions, let me see if I can get to the questions here. I'm going to go on to the Facebook and to, let's see, any questions here. I don't think we got any questions. All right. Well, that means I did this perfectly. Right? No, just kidding. But this is my contact information. I'm an open book. If you need any assistance in harm reduction, Narcan, or if you need to get somebody some help to get into treatment or recovery services, happy to assist in that. Um, uh, Please do remember that we got our event coming on tomorrow, um, which is at 7 o'clock, and it's going to be on YouTube and Facebook as well. So just follow the same method that you joined today, and you'll get to check us out tomorrow. I'm gonna check one more time for questions. If not, I'm gonna. All right. Thank you very much, Eddie. Appreciate you being here. Um, and yeah, exactly that. This is the tip of the iceberg. We're getting started. This is introductory. There's a lot more to this, but this is kind of like you know, 101 per se. And so you guys can get that on your radar. What's actually going on? Um, all right, guys. I wish you the best for the rest of your night, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the recovery stories portion of this event. Thank you so much.